12-year-old Maureen Louise Sterling and Yvonne Lisa Weber, two friends and Herbert Slater Middle School students, disappeared around 9:00 p.m. on February 4, 1972, after visiting the Redwood Empire Ice Arena, and were last seen hitchhiking on Guerneville Road, northwest of Santa Rosa. The body of a 19-year-old woman had previously been found in March 1972, whilst the following month a 20-year-old Santa Rosa Junior College student went missing, her body never found. The remains of two more young women were found in May and June 1973, along with a third found in July. On February 6, 1973, 14-year-old Carolyn Nadine Davis ran away from her home outside Anderson in Shasta County. She disappeared on 15th of July, after being dropped off by her grandmother at the Garberville post office, and was last seen hitchhiking that afternoon near the Highway 101 ramp, southbound, in Garberville. Her body was discovered on July 31st. Just 3 feet from where the remains of Sterling and Weber had been recovered 7 months prior. The cause of death was deemed to be strychnine poisoning that occurred roughly 10 to 14 days before the discovery of her body, although it could not be determined if she had been raped. Investigators surmised that her body had been thrown from the road as the hillside brush appeared undisturbed. Over the next year, another 5 young women would either go missing, or be found horribly murdered. These crimes are collectively known as the Sonoma Co-ed murders, or more popularly as the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, and have so far remained unsolved. Although Arthur Leigh Allen was never considered a suspect in what became known as the Sonoma Co-ed murders, there is circumstantial evidence that points to his possible involvement. During Allen's time in Sonoma County, the Zodiac murders apparently ceased, just prior to the beginning of the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. He was known to have an obsession with young girls, for which he had lost his position with several previous jobs, and some of the victims' bodies had been thrown from the nearby embankment to where they were later found. Allen's hulking physical presence would allow him to accomplish this with little effort. Jim Silver, a retired special agent with the California Department of Justice, has said that if you mapped where the co-ed victims were last seen and where they were later found, Allen's trailer would be located directly at the center. Despite this, there is little evidence to connect Allen with these murders. But all Arthur Leigh Allen would be arrested for other crimes. On September 27, 1974, he was taken into custody at his Sonoma trailer when officers arrived under Deputy Haas, of the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. They had been notified of an incident that had occurred on September 23, when a complaint was lodged against Allen. Previously, between July 11 and July 25, Allen had enticed 2 boys to his trailer bedroom. Afterwards, he had paid them both by pressing 2 quarters into their hands. He was charged with child molestation and exciting the lust of a minor under 14 years old. Allen told the deputy, "I know you don't like it, but I'm just a nasty man." During his time in jail, Allen thought about pleading guilty, and the next day he was released on $5,000 bail for each count of felony child molesting. When he went back to Vallejo, he told friends he had been arrested because he was the Zodiac. A Santa Rosa sergeant elaborated in 1974, Leigh Allen molested a 9-year-old boy from the Fremont Elementary School in his trailer. He continued, another 8-year-old was there too. Leigh had lured them inside to see some chipmunks and committed lewd acts involving oral copulation upon the 2 children. The file says he worked part-time at Yeager and Kirk's lumber yard. And we have his traffic ticket here. He has a file. On the file is a notation that I've never seen before. RS6, a C and amp. A high priority code, and this notation is marked yes. The daughter of a woman Allen had known for many years related more about the incident. As I understand his incarceration at Atascadero, it was for molesting the son of a female friend of his. The boy was maybe anywhere from 8 to 13 years old. The version he told my mother was the woman was just jealous of his relationship with her son. I believe he was dating the woman. He said that was why she had turned him in, jealousy. This would prove to be untrue, for the relationship was purely platonic, as was all of Allen's relationships with women. On January 23, 1975, Allen was arrested. Officers were allowed into the house by his mother, and they found Allen in the basement shrieking. Live chipmunks crawling all over him. Squirrel shit was dripping from his shoulders, one policeman said. He was sentenced to Atascadero State Hospital for the criminally insane on March 13, 1975. 2 years later, he was transferred to the Sonoma County Jail, and by August 1977, he was released. During his time there, no Zodiac crimes were committed. During the 1980s, Allen began to suffer from a range of health issues, including him wrestling with weight, high blood pressure, flagging vision and alcohol problems. as well as diabetes and kidney deterioration. He still remained the favorite suspect of many law enforcement detectives. Others, however, had their own theories on the Zodiac's identity. On January 10, 1989, Allen's mother Bernice died at the age of 83. On December 14, 1990, career criminal Ralph Spinelli said he wanted to speak to investigators. Overstreet contacted Detective Bauer, and after speaking with Spinelli he said, he won't divulge what information he has regarding Zodiac unless some kind of deal is made regarding the present charges against him. Refusing to name the Zodiac unless his demands were met and all charges against him were dropped, Conway and Bauer told him no. They asked him how he knew the Zodiac's identity. He threatened me several days before the killing of Paul Stein, the San Francisco cab driver. He wanted to show me how tough he was. He told me he was going to San Francisco and kill a cabbie for me, Spinelli said. The next day or so a cab driver was killed in San Francisco and the Zodiac took credit for it. Eventually Spinelli agreed to provide Zodiac's name to his lawyer Craig Kennedy, who said that no further information would be forthcoming unless a deal was made. The investigators again refused. By January 31, 1991, Spinelli's lawyer agreed to provide the name of the Zodiac to police. He said it's Leigh Allen, Arthur Leigh Allen. Bauer immediately contacted Armstrong, who confirmed that Allen had been a suspect in the Zodiac murders during the 1970s, and that his name had never been revealed to the press. The only people who knew his name were those involved with the investigation, or those Allen had bragged to, such as medical personnel at Atascadero or his co-workers at an auto parts shop in Sonoma. When detectives did some research, they discovered that Allen and Spinelli were acquaintances a long time ago. Allen had apparently approached Spinelli and said he wanted to be an enforcer for him. At that time, Spinelli owned a topless bar and Allen admitted he was the Zodiac Killer, and said to him, "To show you, I'm going to go to San Francisco and kill a guy." This was shortly before the Stein killing, and he supposedly came back and said, "I'm responsible for the Stein killing." Because of his criminal past, investigators were unsure if they could trust his admission about Allen, and there was every possibility he had invented the story to gain his freedom. Eventually, Ralph Spinelli would refuse to cooperate with police and was reportedly incarcerated some 290 miles north of San Francisco on the Oregon border. In February 1991, Detective George Bauer and Conway secured a warrant to search Allen's Fresno residence. They were counting on the fact that some serial killers kept souvenirs and trophies from their victims, so they might relive the moment. On February 14, 1991, detectives arrived at Allen's Fresno home to execute the warrant. Detectives were most interested in what he kept within the basement, where he had more or less exiled himself after his mother's death. They described it as almost museum-like, and they hoped to find some Zodiac relics. There they came across something disturbing. Unearthing 4 boxes of videotapes, they played some for several seconds. They then showed them for Allen, and as they did, recorded screams of pain were heard. When the video player was switched off, there was a long pause. "That's me," Allen said. "Doing what?" he was asked. "Spanking a young boy. I find it sexually stimulating. I admit to being a sexual deviant. I do get pleasure, cruel pleasure, from sadistic pornography." Other tapes had similarly disturbing footage. It was clear that Allen had been committing crimes for which he would be sent back to Atascadero. "If I was Zodiac," he said, "I'd want to get it off my chest. Zodiac would be judged crazy. Zodiac doesn't like to kill," he said. Allen denied any involvement in the Zodiac murders, and appeared calm during the search. At one point, investigators brought up a treasure trove of weapons from the basement, and since Allen was an ex-con, possession of these weapons was illegal. The next find was even bigger, when the searchers uncovered 4 pipe bombs, a primer cord and 7 impact devices. They also found a how-to for making bombs, but Allen denied having seen the piece of paper it was written on. They had hoped to locate any diaries, journals or photographs Allen might have kept that linked him to the crimes, but nothing incriminating was found. He was wearing another Zodiac Sea Wolf watch, which was taken by the detectives as part of the search. Among his possessions was found a letter from the Justice Department signed by John Silver which stated Allen was not the Zodiac. Police learned that this was a forgery, made by Allen himself while working at the print shop at Atascadero. On the second day of the search, officers dug up the back garden and searched through the garage. There were also no hidden areas of the home where Allen could have kept his trophies. Ultimately, no evidence was found linking Arthur Leigh Allen to the Zodiac murders. Searches were also made of his boat and trailer, but again nothing incriminating was found. The Valentine's Day search was not entirely without success, as the detectives learned more about their main suspect, including his potential insanity defense strategy if he were ever to stand before a courtroom facing charges. On May 21, 1991, Allen gave his first interview to the Times-Herald, in which he complained about the latest search of his property. He also made mention of Ralph Spinelli as the informant who told police about him, leading detectives to understand that Allen himself had kept a close watch on Spinelli. The next day, the Vallejo Times-Herald ran a story about the Zodiac suspect and the search of his property. But police were quoted as saying that an arrest in the case was not imminent. Later that same month, it became known that Allen had visited a psychologist in Vallejo. This man said he was afraid of Allen, who he thought might want to kill him. Apparently several tapes were in the possession of people in Los Angeles who wanted to sell them. These same people attempted to sell the tapes to Unsolved Mysteries, who refused. It is unknown what became of the tapes from Allen therapy sessions. In July 1991, Allen participated in a television interview for the 10 o'clock news, in which he denied being the Zodiac Killer. By that time, the 58-year-old was diabetic and had recently undergone kidney dialysis. He also featured on PIX, Channel 5, in which he stated, "I'm not the Zodiac. I've never killed anyone." In July 1992, survivor Mike Mayhew picked Allen out of a police lineup as the man he believed attacked him, saying, "That's him. That's the man who shot me." Mayhew had previously described to detectives a brown Corvair he saw at Blue Rock Springs on the night he was shot. Allen's friend Philip owned such a car, and Allen was allowed to use it. Meanwhile, surviving victim Brian Hartnell also identified Allen's voice and physical appearance as being similar to that of the Zodiac Killer. On August 26, 1992, George Bauert was contacted by a cop who asked him if he was still investigating Allen. "Yeah," Bauert said. "Well, I'm in his house and he's laying on the floor." Bauert questioned, "What's he doing on the floor?" To which the cop said, "Well, he's dead and he's lying there with a great big bump on his forehead." Allen's body had been found by a female boarder living above him, and it was determined he had died from arteriosclerotic heart failure. 2 days after his death, Vallejo police served another warrant at his property and seized items. During the search after his death, detectives looked around Allen's new computer, and noticed there were numerous floppy disks labeled Zodiac. Bauert noticed a videotape on a bookshelf that was marked with the letter Z. Thinking it might contain something incriminating, they secured a warrant to view it. As soon as they were able, they played it, but found it only showed Allen mooning the police, cursing them, and complaining about the Zodiac case. When police searched Arthur Leigh Allen's homes, he was in possession with everything the expert investigators thought the Zodiac would have: a portable typewriter, an arsenal of guns, bombs and knives. As per the Zodiac profile, Allen was sexually interested in children, and had developed a hatred for women. Allen had always been a viable suspect for the Zodiac murders. He fit the profile, and it was for this reason he was revisited time and again by law enforcement. In 2002, the SFPD developed a partial DNA profile from the saliva taken from the stamps and envelopes of the Zodiac's letters. This was compared to the DNA of Allen, as well as Don Chaney, Allen's one-time friend who came forward with information that Allen was Zodiac. Neither test result indicated a match, and as such both Allen and Chaney were excluded as contributors of the DNA on the stamps and envelopes. However, this still doesn't rule out Allen as the Zodiac. It only excludes him as being the person who licked the stamps on Zodiac's letters. Unless further evidence emerges exonerating Allen, he will remain a prime suspect in the Zodiac slayings. This concludes our 3-part Zodiac series. Thank you for listening. Be sure to hit the notification bell so that you know when we upload new true crime videos.